I keep hearing the same story from friends who try to save a few bucks on a cheap launch monitor, only to end up with a device that can't even tell the difference between a driver and a pitching wedge. The disappointment sets in after the first round when the data looks like nonsense, and you're left wondering if you just wasted money on a glorified stopwatch. So the question is, does the Garmin Approach R50 Premium feel like a smarter buy, or is it just another gimmick that looks good on paper? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When I first saw the R50 bundle, I was skeptical, mainly because I've seen a lot of premium bundles that end up being a collection of accessories you'll never use. My hesitation was rooted in three things: the real-world setup time, how useful the data actually is when you're trying to shave strokes off your game, and whether the price point truly reflects what you get versus the cheaper alternatives that promise the world but deliver a flickering screen and a handful of numbers. I spent a few evenings setting it up in my garage, reading through the manual, and watching a handful of YouTube walkthroughs before I finally decided to give it a proper test drive. The first thing that struck me was the three-camera system. It's not just a single sensor trying to guess your ball flight. The cameras track the club head, the impact zone, and the ball launch. In a typical practice session, that translates to a more consistent read on club speed and launch angle compared to the single sensor units that often miss the mark on off-center hits. For someone who spends a lot of time on the range, that extra precision can mean the difference between thinking you're swinging a 105 miles per hour driver when you're actually at 98 miles per hour and making an informed adjustment. The 10-inch touchscreen display is where the immersive claim starts to feel real. It runs a built-in simulator that lets you pick a virtual course, line up a tee shot, and watch a 3D representation of the ball flight. I tried a few holes on Pebble Beach, and the visual feedback was surprisingly smooth. The ball's trajectory, spin, and roll looked close enough to a real round that I could actually picture where I'd land on the fairway. That's a step up from the basic shot tracker apps that just show a flat line graph. The touch interface is responsive enough that you can switch clubs or adjust settings without pausing your swing. Swing analysis is where the bundle tries to set itself apart from the competition. The system logs data for every club in your bag, so you can compare your driver swing to your 7-iron swing side by side. In practice, I found the swing tempo and club path visualizations useful for spotting obvious flaws. For example, after a few practice rounds, I noticed my driver was consistently opening too early, which was causing a slice. The app suggested a minor grip tweak, and after a couple of sessions my ball started staying straighter. It's not a full-blown coach, but it gives you actionable hints that you can test on the range. Staying connected is a feature that sounds nice on paper, but actually works. The R50 syncs with Garmin's Golf Network, letting you compete in real-time challenges with friends or strangers worldwide. If you're the kind of golfer who likes a little friendly competition, those leaderboards add a social element that can keep you motivated on a rainy day. I joined a weekly virtual match, and the ability to see how my scores stack up against others helped me keep a consistent practice schedule. Now, let's talk about the hidden trade-offs. First, the R50 isn't a replacement for a professional launch monitor that you'd find at a teaching facility. The three-camera setup is clever, but it still relies on good lighting and a relatively clear line of sight. In my garage, I had to clear away a small bookshelf and install a bright LED panel to keep the cameras from getting confused by shadows. If you're planning to use it in a dimly lit basement or outdoors under a cloudy sky, you'll notice the data wobble a bit more than you'd like. That's a practical limitation you won't find in higher-end models that use radar or launch tube technology. Another point to consider is the depth of data. The R50 gives you club speed, launch angle, spin, and a few swing metrics, but it doesn't break down smash factor or provide a full shot-by-shot video replay that some advanced units offer. If you're an elite amateur who wants to fine-tune launch conditions down to the decimal, you'll probably feel the data is a little too high-level. However, for the majority of recreational players who just want a solid sense of where they're improving, that level of detail is usually sufficient. The bundle includes a set of extra accessories, a carrying case, a mounting bracket, and a rechargeable battery pack. Those extras are handy if you intend to move the unit between the garage, the backyard, or even a friend's house for.